Hey everybody, what's going on? Clint and T here, and we are going to bring you a little bit of a new show.
A little bit.
Welcome to CineFix Staff Picks. Now this is going to be a little bit like that section right at the front of the record store where the people that work at the record store put the records out. They're like, hey, these are the records.
It's going to be like, like Jeff's Picks, and it's, like Slayer or something.
Exactly, except now it's going to be T's Picks.
Yeah, and it's going to be like some obscure indie movie because I'm a hipster douche.
So starting next year, what we're going to do is we're going to do it once a month.
Typically, when we're doing our staff picks just for the month, it won't be quite as exhaustive a list as this. It might be one or two things from each of us, but since this is for all of 2016, you're going to get a little bit more potatoes with that meat.
So all of us here at CineFix took a look at all the movies that came out in 2016, because frankly, we forgot completely what came out this year and what came out last year and what comes out next year.
We watch a lot of movies.
Point is, we all whittled down a list to some of our favorites, and we're going to present them to you right now.
Yes.
I think that's good enough, huh?
The first film that I'm going to recommend that you check out, and I'm pretty sure it's available widely now, is Chan Park-wook's The Hand Maiden, which is a South Korean film about, gosh, I hesitate to even tell you what it's about, because it's so full of twists and turns that giving anything away would be really unfortunate. But I'll tell you this, it is by far the sexiest movie that I have seen in 2016. Just something about the premise, but also the performances, the characters, and that crazy, crazy twist after crazy, crazy twist. And yes, there is a full-fledged sex scene that make this the sexiest movie that I've seen, maybe in a long, long time. Just a really exquisite, really intricate, really complex film that rewards you for paying attention, which is not hard to do given what you're seeing on screen most of the time.
Okay guys, so normally we only pick one or two movies for these best of the year kind of things, but I'm greedy, so I have 3 of my favorite movies along with 2 honorable mentions, and my #1 movie of the year is Moonlight. It was directed by Barry Jenkins, who also directed Medicine for Melancholy with Wyatt Cenac a couple years back. This is basically only his second real feature, but I was really blown away by how well done it was. The main thing I really loved about it was that it tackles a very, very under-discussed subject matter, namely what it's like to be a young black man who is gay growing up in a very poor urban environment. But the performances in it were really, really incredible across the board. We have a lot of young up-and-coming actors, as well as more established faces like Mahershala Ali, Janelle Monáe, who's now dipping her toe into acting, and Naomi Harris, who's getting a ton of Oscar buzz. My recommendation is, if you're even slightly curious about Moonlight, go see it, because it is by far my favorite movie and the most thought-provoking movie that I saw this entire year.
So for my #1 pick, I am going with Nocturnal Animals. It's a movie that was released back in November in a couple of screens, and then has slowly been getting a wider and wider release. And Nocturnal Animals is a strange pick for me because I'm not entirely sure how good a movie it is or how much I really enjoyed the movie. But what I loved about it is that it's a movie that you can talk about a lot. Like, everybody that I've talked to about this movie has sort of a different take on it. Because ultimately what the movie is about is Amy Adams' ex-husband, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, writes a book that's sort of based on her a little bit, and he sends her a copy of the book, and so she's reading the book. So half of the movie is Amy Adams in real life, and half the movie is the visualization of the book. And everybody that I talk to about it has a little bit of a different take on what it means, and that to me is really, really fascinating. There's a lot of movies that are cut and dry, here's what it is, do you like it or do you not? Nocturnal Animals, though, and Tom Ford in general, his previous film, A Single Man, from a handful of years ago, was about the same way. It's really easy to get into a conversation about this movie, whether or not you liked it. But the point is, it's chock full of really good performances. Michael Shannon is awesome. Jake Gyllenhaal is awesome. I'm coming around on Amy Adams. I never really liked her all that much, but her 2 movies this year, Arrival and now Nocturnal Animals, have really kind of sold me on her. So she's great in it as well. It is a tough movie to watch. The subject matter is tough, but it is a piece of art that really gets you talking about what it meant to you in the end, and that's really cool.
There's a couple comedies this year that I really liked that I don't think a lot of people were necessarily raving about or talking about, but I do recommend them, starting with The Boss with Melissa McCarthy. I thought it was a lot of fun, actually. I thought her performance was great. This movie reminded me a lot of Troop Beverly Hills that came out in 1989, which is a movie that I actually grew up watching. I have 2 older sisters. I loved that movie. So this was almost to me like a reimagining of that, and I thought it was just a lot of fun and some really awesome action sequences. Like, it's coming. This is the trailer, right? Yeah. Another comedy I really enjoyed was Keeping Up with the Joneses. I don't really remember a lot of people talking about this, but I personally really enjoyed it. I like a good action comedy, and it had everything I wanted as far as like car chases, some funny moments. I love all the actors in it. Kind of reminded me of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which is another movie that, you know, it's not the greatest movie, but it's just super fun to watch. So I think this is going to be one of those that has lots of repeat viewings when you're in the mood for this kind of thing. So both of these movies really remind me of those kind of broad comedies that I grew up watching. So I like to see one of those every now and then.
My number 2 pick for 2016 is Hell or High Water. It has Chris Pine, Ben Foster, and Jeff Bridges, and it was great. It's a really straightforward, kind of Western-y kind of movie about two brothers who are robbing a bank, and they rob some more banks, and then they've got this sheriff on their tail. Like I said, it's a pretty simple story. It's really just like one of those classically well-written, well-directed, well-acted, well-put-together movies. It doesn't have any superheroes or anything like that. I know that's what tends to get asses in seats these days, but not me. So if you like regular movies that are just really well done, check out Hell or High Water. It's fantastic.
If you take my advice on any given movie this year, let it be Karen Kurosawa's The Invitation, which is a very freaky movie that just builds and builds and builds. For the first 15 or 20 minutes or so, you are not going to be into it. I certainly wasn't. I got to do the dishes or something else, and suddenly something happens. And I turned back to the screen, and by the time the film was over, I was crawling up the walls. It is a intensely cerebral thriller that has an incredible payoff at the very end. The last shot is one of the best last shots in a movie that I've seen in a long, long time.
Another one of my picks is Midnight Special, and this is kind of a pick for the same reason as what I picked for Nocturnal Animals. I remember when I reviewed this movie, I didn't particularly love it because I feel like it like half answered a lot of questions. And I've since revisited the movie based on somebody that really enjoyed the movie. He's like, no, give it another chance, watch it again, and I did, and I enjoyed it much, much more the second time around. But this is it's a movie about a father taking his son away from a cult. So this son has some type of special abilities, these sort of supernatural sci-fi kind of powers. It's not entirely clear what's going on, but this cult has sort of idolized this young boy. So it's another one of these sci-fi movies that's got big sci-fi ideas, but it's wrapped up around this fairly small story about a father and his son. And there's a handful of other things going on. There's big government stuff going on. There's religious fanaticism going on. So there's a lot of threads to pull on in this movie. And again, it's another movie that is really easy to talk about because the ending is a little unclear and there are questions that go unanswered. So if you saw it already, give it another shot. And if you didn't see it, give it the first shot.
And in the number 3 spot comes Everybody Wants Some, Richard Linklater's latest and greatest. Look, everyone calls this the spiritual sequel to Dazed and Confused, and that describes it perfectly. It takes place, I think, in 1980, if I remember correctly. It's been quite some time since I call it, and basically, the early 80s is still the 70s, so it still feels very much cleaved to that era that we see from Dazed and Confused. And to be honest with you, this is kind of like Seinfeld, and it's not really about anything in particular. You know, it's about this guy who's just getting to college, he's a freshman moving in, he's on the baseball team of his school. And you just kind of follow him around and you spend time with these characters. And I've already talked about this movie a few times on the channel throughout the year. But I really loved it. It was really just a fun time. You know, like the way they marketed it, it was a little bit of a turnoff. I was worried that maybe Linklater had sold out because it felt like he was doing I felt like Adam Devine should be in this movie the way that it was being marketed. But once I actually saw it, it was really, really great. And I definitely suggest that you check it out if you haven't already. In fact, I'm probably going to check it out again because it's awesome and I want to watch it again.
A movie that caught me totally off guard this year was The Meddler, which is a very little seen, very little talked about, sort of lighthearted comedy by Lorena Scafaria, writer-director of Seeking a Friend at the End of the World. She wrote and directed this movie starring Susan Sarandon and Rose Byrne. Susan Sarandon is the mother who has very little to do because she's widowed and she has money, so she moves to California to be close to her daughter. The title is not all that accurate. It makes it sound like she just meddles in this poor woman's life, when really she's just trying to help out. In a lot of ways, she does help out. She helps out a lot of people around her and suddenly discovers that she has a knack for affecting people's lives in positive ways. And it's really lovely. It's in that sort of Mike Nichols, Nancy Meyers, nice movie. It's a nice movie with a nice ending and a nice message, and everything about it is nice, and you walk away feeling like the world isn't such a terrible place. Is that such a terrible thing? They just don't make movies like that anymore. And if you're in the mood for something along those lines, The Meddler is really, really well done. Susan Sarandon's performance as a Jewish mother is perfect. It's spot on. Once you sort of get into the groove of this movie, it absolutely takes you away. It's great.
I also really loved La La Land, but you don't need me to recommend that movie as well. So I'm going to start with Arrival. And this is a pretty mainstream movie, but if you haven't seen it, I really recommend it. It was a sci-fi movie, but kind of based in reality in a way that I really liked. And it was really just about language and communication, and I thought the performances were great. And I thought it was really interesting and treated the audience like they weren't idiots. It actually assumed that some people are smart and might appreciate a story like this, so I highly recommend it. I also love when a movie is a totally different experience the second time you watch it, and this is one of those movies that you're going to want to watch twice.
So my other pick is a movie called Sing Street, and to be honest, I'm not entirely sure if this one is actually super popular, because I heard like whispers about it when it came out, and people were kind of obsessed with this movie, but it's outstanding. And this is actually a movie that doesn't have I chose this movie for reasons that have nothing to do with the reasons I chose Nocturnal Animals or Midnight Special, least of which is Michael Shannon is not in it, which is kind of a surprise. But point is, it's such a feel-good, happy movie. It's done by John Carney, who did Once a bunch of years ago, and then also Begin Again more recently. But this is about a kid growing up in the 80s in Dublin, and it's all about 80s pop music. He falls in love with a girl, and he starts a band, and he's growing up in these sort of adverse circumstances, but it's this music that he really gets into that really sort of allows him to become who he wants to be. It allows him to become himself, ultimately. The way that they go about it is so charming, and it's so much fun, and the cast of all these kids from Dublin are all really great, and the music is pretty good. They did a lot of original music for it, and it made me want to go listen to Duran Duran again, which I didn't listen to Duran Duran the first time around, but now I'm like, I think I kind of want to get into Duran Duran. So it's just a blast of a movie. And again, I think it's on Netflix right now. It's been on Netflix for a while, but so literally there's no excuse for you to not watch it if you haven't already. If you have already, because I feel like it did have a moment where everybody was going nuts about Sing Street. So this might not be an under the radar pick, but just go watch it again. It'll put you in a good mood.
Like I said, I have two honorable mentions. The first is Don't Think Twice. It was written and directed by Mike Birbiglia, who's also in it. It also has Keegan-Michael Key, Jillian Jacobs, and Kate Micucci, as well as a lot of other really outstanding comedic talents. This is another movie that really just surprised me. I don't know why I was surprised, because I really love Mike Birbiglia as a stand-up. I like his first movie that he did, Sleepwalk With Me, which was based on his memoir. And this is really just a nice narrative tale that he tells about a group of improv comedians who are all trying to make it in New York. They're all trying to, get that dangling carrot of getting cast on Saturday Night Live. It happens to one of them, and it's just kind of the fallout of how that changes the dynamic within the group and within themselves after one of them gets this insane level of success and the other ones are still toiling. I have to say, even though this movie is about funny people and it has funny moments, it's not overall that funny. It's really more about people, and it has a lot of drama and heart, and it actually might give you like a little bit of a lump in your throat. Like, there are some really sad moments. So really, really well-rounded emotionally. Don't go in there expecting to laugh your ass off from front to back, because it's not going to happen, but you will have an excellent time if you check it out.
Another pick from this year was the remake of Pete's Dragon. I'm seeing a theme here of like movies from my childhood, but I guess that's something I'm really into. I was scared about this movie. I did not like the trailer. I didn't think it was going to be good. It was one of those, why are you messing with my childhood? I grew up watching the original 1977 movie. It's got live action and animation, and I totally love it. So I wasn't crazy about the redesign of the main character of the dragon, but story-wise and watching the movie, it just made you feel good. It was a good time. I felt all the feels, and I really want Bryce Dallas Howard to be my mom.
And my last pick/honorable mention is Greenroom, which stars the late Anton Yelchin, R.I.P. Terrible thing that happened to him, and this is one of his final films, and it's fantastic. It definitely caught me by surprise. I went in there with no expectations, really, neither high nor low, but I was intrigued by the idea of Patrick Stewart being a bad guy, and this movie kind of has everything. It's got Rottweilers, it's got neo-Nazis, it's got Patrick Stewart. I feel like I'm kind of turning into Stefan from Saturday Night Live right now, so I'm gonna stop, but It's got a really cool mix of all sorts of different things, and it's got a very compelling story. It's on that sort of like horror thriller genre of being trapped in a location and trying to escape because there are people waiting outside trying to kill you type of situation. And yeah, there are some really grotesque, gory moments in it. So if you're into that sort of thing, you will really like it. If you just like a thrilling horror movie, you'll still like it. If you don't like horror movie, you might even like it because I believe Clint saw it and he liked it. So that's saying something. So this one, along with the other 4 movies I mentioned, have been my favorites of 2016. I hope you check out some or all of them, and then we can be pals. See you in 2017.